In this video, I'm going to show you the simplest way to go about doing a portrait. So there are many different ways of doing a portrait. This is only one way. This was the first way I was taught, and I think it's a great way for beginners to do a portrait. All right, so the first thing we got to do is we got to draw our portrait onto our canvas. And the quickest and easiest way to do this is to use a grid. It will produce the most accurate result. The only downside to using a grid is that you don't get to practice your drawing skills. So if you do choose to do this, don't lean on it. Don't use it as a crutch, and don't always do it, because it's very easy to slip into a habit of always using it. I'm guilty of this for years. I would just use a grid, and I didn't get to practice my drawing skills, and therefore I didn't progress in my drawing skills, which is never good. The key, if you've never done a grid before, is the first thing is you want to make sure that when you crop your image on your computer or your phone, that you crop it into the same dimensions as your canvas. So this canvas is 14 by 18. So when I cropped my image on Photoshop, I made sure to use the same dimensions. So when I put the grid, it will match up with the canvas. All right, and for the grid here, you can see where the facial features are. I made the grid smaller, or I just put in more of the boxes by just dividing the boxes that I had in half. So for each box, I created 4 more. So, and this helps with drawing in accurately, because the more boxes that you have, the easier it is going to be to draw in the portrait accurately, because you have more, guidelines. And now I'm just erasing the grid lines. Don't worry if you can't do this all the way. I'm just doing it mainly to get rid of any lines that aren't the portrait, so I don't get confused later on when I'm painting. All right, so the first stage we're gonna do is the underpainting. And during this stage, it's a good way to establish your values, and you can go as detailed with this as you like, or you can go as simple as you like. It's just kind of a first pass at mapping out the values and also kind of honing in your drawing. All right, so once you have your underpainting where you like, the next step is to start painting. And I like to work dark to light and thin to thick. So you'll see that I'll start out with a lot of the darker areas first. And it might be hard to tell in the video, but I am using thinner paint. As it goes on, I'll use thicker and thicker paint. And just because you work dark to light doesn't mean that you can't go back and do dark. A lot of painting is, pushing and pulling, of throwing in your darks in, putting your lights, seeing how everything's working together, and then, pushing back and forth and going back and forth between darks and lights. All right, so I'm starting with the darks here, and I'm keeping my paint thin. And the first thing that I'm concerned with when doing this is just getting paint on the canvas. I want to get some neutral colors on there so I can start moving the paint around and adding highlights and adding darks and really constructing the shape of the face. And I even get some neutral colors in for my background, because I don't want to not paint the background in, because I want to know how that's going to be working with the subject in the painting. See, a lot of people put the background in at the very end, and it just doesn't work. You can kind of tell at the end of the painting that it looks like they just threw the background in, because it wasn't worked at the same time as the painting. And see, now I'm just mainly concerned with constructing the main shapes of the face here. I'm not worried about detail. I'm using a large brush, and I just want to get the main planes correct and just the structure of everything correct before I go into any detail. And now when I am going into some detail, like I'm putting in some wrinkles around the eyes here, a thing to note that I see a lot of people miss with portraits is they tend to make these wrinkles or lines in the face a lot darker than they need to be. I guess they stand out to the artist's eye, and they tend to paint them in darker. And this is really a value issue, and a way to counteract it is to work your painting as a whole. You know, constantly be stepping back and looking at your painting as a whole, and moving from one part to the next, and you'll see that those lines are just going to stand out too much because they're too dark compared to everything else. Another way to counteract this is take a picture of your painting, put it in black and white on your phone, and put it next to your reference photo in black and white on your phone, and you'll see where values aren't matching up. All right, and for the last step, this is a step I feel a lot of people don't do, and I didn't do for a very long period of time, which is when you're done with your painting, you think you're done, step away from it for a day or two and get somebody else's opinion on it. I'm lucky enough that both my parents are artists, so I will send a photo of my painting to my mom and ask her if anything doesn't look right. I also send her the reference photo, and she'll be honest and tell me things that aren't working. And that's what I had to do with this one. There were some issues with the jaw and the chin and certain shadows and the shape of the mouth that I had to go back and fix. Another thing you can do is you can take a picture of your painting and put it right next to your reference photo in an app. And when you do that, the differences will be very obvious, and you can point out any mistakes that you do need to fix. But it's easy to start a painting. It's very hard to finish a painting correctly. So I really recommend, stepping away from it for a day or so, getting other opinions, and really making sure everything is correct. So there you go. That's a good way to go about doing a portrait if you're a beginner, or if you're not a beginner. If you've never tried this way, give it a try. I haven't done this in a long time, and I was surprised at how much fun I had and how much I actually learned from doing this way, which I haven't done in a very long time. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. If there's any other questions you have about oil painting that you'd like to see a video on, let me know in the comments section. I will make a video on it. You can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm also on Facebook at Paint Coach, so you can follow me there as well. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button to subscribe to the channel. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.